Hi, this is Andrea Jones. This is my final, the case study for EDL 851. A good teacher turns bad. Stress at home creates problems at school. Basic case study is about Mrs. Wilson, who is a principal in a rural elementary school, and she has noticed, and there's also been complaints about first grade teacher, Mrs. Horton. Mrs. Horton previously has been an auditor in the district, has been highly recognized as a top teacher, an expert in her field, but as the last few months, the previous spring and then the beginning of the new year, has really digressed a little bit in her demeanor and her behavior and just her overall actions within her school setting. It's also known that Mrs. Horton has been having some marital problems at home. It comes to head when finally a parent, specific parent, reaches out and says, "Hey, I've been trying to get a hold of the teacher. My daughter's coming home, first grader, who is crying and doesn't want to go to school and doesn't have a good relationship with the teacher." They meet. It comes to blows. Principal stops it because the teacher loses it a little bit, and then stops the meeting, and then we'll further investigate. Things we know, obviously Mrs. Horton's demeanor and attitude have changed. She also disagrees recently with a school initiative that was taking place, and she also is belittling other teachers if they are in agreement with it. There have been multiple parents that have complained within the district about her within the last few months, that her husband, they have separated at home, and she hasn't been following through. Mrs. Horton is not following through with parent contact, parent requests, or anything, but Mrs. Wilson has been in her classroom, has not witnessed anything that's too alarming. What do we need to know? Number one, are there any resources available for staff or personal mental health or anything? District resources to assist teacher to improve when they're faltering. It seems like that's kind of where she's at. And any validity to the complaints? Have there been any previous complaints? Has there ever been an action plan or anything for Mrs. Horton in the past? Ultimately, the problem is Mrs. Horton following educational practices and standards for academic areas, social, emotional, health, and creating a positive relationship for student development. The action plan, number one, as a principal, I would immediately reach out to Mrs. Horton. Hopefully I've built a relationship with her just to do a basic check-in to see what we can do, what I can do to help alleviate any of her stress that she might be experiencing that is obviously it's rolling into her work. If available, share any district resources. Is there any counseling or any health plans? And then if it's to the point where encouraging, she has the ability to help her find if she needs to take some time away, if that's a possibility. I would also follow up with the complaints from other parents if it's not done so previously, and then maybe encourage students if the specific student that we had, that the parent within the case study suggest maybe meeting with the school counselor to get perspective on the student-teacher interaction and to help the little person through that at that time. Okay. If she's not receptive and defensive, I would absolutely further a meeting with an HR or other district members to then put an action plan in place to improve the classroom interactions with students and then student learning. That's improve student interaction, school responsibilities such as being on time, and then meeting just the needs of all students. And also including that would mean an apology to Mr. Stafford, the one that she blew up at. That might mean weekly check-ins on areas of growth. And it could even be a personal growth book study if that was something that I felt was needed. I conclude but not limited to, more formal and informal observations and making sure I was documenting anything just in that due process. Set up guidelines or goals if we have an IRT, and that might mean, it might be even the principal themselves, or if you have other district personnel that could help with that to help improve district guidelines. And then obviously I'm sure there are district guidelines set in place for implementing the effectiveness of the teacher in the classroom, and so what's the protocol to follow through within that specific district. Resolving the issue, at this time, I do not believe there's removal. It's warranted for removal because the teacher has the ability to go through, has the option for due process. It can't just be an immediate removal. If this is the first complaint, hopefully the teacher just needs redirection, and it's, as a school leader, it's their principal's responsibility to help promote that ethical and professional development behavior for staff. And then the action plan follow-up, those weekly check-ins, and to monitor the growth, and to literally document all of that. If she is reaching it, if she's not, I think that's something to hopefully, if it gets to the point where it needs to be reevaluated. As for the first grader, I think it's important that each student is treated fairly and respectfully, and must be maintained. It is the principal's responsibility to make sure that's top priority. To continue to check in on them, whether it's through the counselor or just like casual, like principal, and then also communicate with the parents. Also need to address the responsibility to promote that school and that adult and student and the school community relationship. Just reinforcing, I don't know, I always have the 24-hour rule. Someone reaches out to you, try to respond within 24 hours. Mrs. Wilson needs to follow up with Mr. Stafford to share a plan for his student specifically. And personally, if the parent is adamant about changing classes, I would honor that request to foster the student's well-being in the long run. To debrief the problem, for me personally, what I was thinking is this teacher needs help and support. Number one, this is out of character, and it's unfortunate it's gotten to that point. What other resources do we have to foster that positive learning environment? And then the other thing I was thinking is, how could this have been prevented from getting to this point? Overall feeling sad for all those involved. It's a yucky year for the kids, it seems like, that they are not getting that interaction that they need, and at the same time the teacher is just really kind of floundering, it seems like, just from the little we have. Are more students than that one little girl feeling overwhelmed, and what can we do to help improve that? And in valuing, as an educator, I really, and even as a principal, the connections that you make with colleagues to help to rely on to build each other up when you get into a situation like this, to have those that can have your back and to help you work through situations like this, so that it doesn't have a negative effect on the classroom. And then school is a team effort, just to continue to building as a team, and for the personal, academic, and I'm talking students and staff. Unresolved are things, one of the things I want to, what type of school supports are in place to prevent this type of situation from happening again? What systems or protocol does a specific district have? They crossed this bridge before? And if they have, what have they done with it? Standard 2, it basically is decisions are made with the well-being and education of all students at the center. As a building leader, it's our responsibility to model, promote, and ensure ethical and professional behavior while keeping in consideration every student and staff member's background and cultural differences. How to promote academic success for each student. Looking at this case study is just be active in building activities, create a working relationship to create a healthy work environment, development of the teacher plan of action to improve student-teacher relations, and just creating that positive classroom engagement with each individual little person. Mentor and promote direction for staff members, and encourage school to home communication weekly. Promote the well-being of every student. I think that it comes down to the development of a teacher plan, and that building community, effectively use of school counselor and other resources, and actively be engaged with students and staff and promote their well-being. And an enhanced instructional capacity. Monitor effectiveness of teaching practices. I think that's important. Self-evaluation, grade level, small group. I think those are things that always continue to keep in mind. And develop staff professional knowledge and practices. As a building leader, that is important to continue to have educators growing and learning as well. And deliver feedback to staff to help them improve and grow. Always had a principal, and I love this, that he would say, work on this, you're doing this well, but also always gave something to work on. And then the last thing is to really use data to drive direction of student growth, and that doesn't just mean academic growth, that's social and emotional as well. Thank you. I've really enjoyed this class, and looking forward to having the summer. Thanks.